think everyone's there live now. You ready, Mr. K?
I am ready.
All right. Welcome to our second medium format experience. Tonight we're featuring phase one, as you can see, with the load of gear that we have loaded up on our table tonight. So thank you very much for joining us tonight and coming on a Thursday evening after work, or maybe in the middle of your day, depending where you live. And hopefully this will be an open, enjoyable conversation about technology, where it's at today and where it's going in the future, and give you a little history and just talk about the phase one product. And so I'd love to introduce the people that are be joining us today. First of all, we'll talk about us. Right. I'm Dave Gallagher. I own Capture Integration, started it about 16 years ago. And that's all you need to know about me, because these guys are the more important ones, right?
I'm Brad Kay. I am the technical support manager. I joined the team about 6 years ago, and I am, in addition to playing with toys here, I play with toys in the field as a commercial photographer.
I'm Steve Hendricks. I joined Capture Integration in 2009. I'm a sales manager at the company, and I'm not gonna do that this time. I did that last time, I was pounding on the table. So I spend all my time with the technology and discussing solutions with clients, and basically marrying clients with equipment that helps them achieve what they're trying to accomplish photographically is what I do. But the cool thing about our company, we're a small company, so we all kind of do a lot of things together and trying to make us a better company and better experience for our clients.
Awesome. And we're very fortunate to have phase one with us today. Phase one representatives, Jon Gilbert, Mr. Jon Gilbert, the technical support manager for the Americas. Jon, hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having us.
I want to see that chair. I want to see your background and see where you're standing.
Right?
Where is he?
Isn't this brilliant? This is my mid-century Colorado house. What can I say?
There he is. Awesome. Love it. All right. And Mr. Sandmeyer, thanks for joining us. Wayne is the bespoke sales manager for the Americas. Do you want to tell us what bespoke means, Wayne?
Yeah, sure. Originally it meant, a custom-made suit, but it's kind of something that's evolved, where now something that's one of a kind or custom-made, unique, and it often has been referring to standing out or being different. And I think that culminates a lot of what our operandus is here in phase one, what we want to do for the photographers as being unique and standing out.
Then Wayne is our bespoke rep, because he's definitely unique. Right? There's no one like Wayne. So he's Mr. Bespoke from here on out. All right. Along with our gentleman from phase one, we have three wonderful CI clients. Mr. Dewey, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi.
Yes, on the Death Star command center, like, right?
It's the bridge.
It's the bridge.
Yeah,
right.
I guess.
Luke.
And Weldon, are you there?
I am. How's it going, everyone?
Thanks for joining us, Weldon. And finally, Mr. Lough.
Good evening.
All right. Well, I just wanted to say hello to you guys real first, but we're going to get back to you in a little bit. We're going to go over some other things first before we get into the panelists. And so before we get anywhere else, we're going to talk about the history of phase one. And we're going to dive into it. I have to tell you, it's going to take a little while, because of that history is significant. In order to, in my eyes, for us to talk about the history of phase one, we really got to go back to digital backs. So we are starting with the first digital back. And so I had to bring out this baby here first. And so this is the Leaf DCB. The Leaf DCB started it all. Photokina in 1992, it was introduced. So I want to show that sensor there. Look at that massive 2K by 2K sensor, right? Literally, this 8-pound unit was on the back of a 4x5. And then we had this filter wheel in front that we had to fire off. And sometimes it was 4 exposures of strobe with a red filter, then the green filter, then the blue filter. Remember these days?
With about 30 cables attached to all
Exactly.
of it.
What was its nickname?
It was the brick. It still is the brick. It's literally 8 pounds in weight. And why is it 8 pounds in weight? Because essentially this is a cooling device. This was a cooling device to keep that sensor cool to get the highest quality out of it. And I have to tell you, at the time, it was ridiculous. Like, I thought this was the coolest thing since sliced bread. But I'm ready to give it back to you. You can have it, because it's now just a beautiful thing to look at on our shelf. So that was 1992. That was the leader for quite some time. Phase one started in 1996. And so phase one started as a scan batch company. And you could put it on a Hasselblad with a studio kit. You could put it on an RZ with a studio kit, or you could stick it in the back of a 4x5. So put it back, you actually had a dark slide, right? You have a dark slide with a 4x5, and this is a tri-linear array. So both of these sensors essentially are in black and white. We had the filter system in a filter wheel on the other one. This has a linear array of red pixels, green pixels, and blue pixels. And so this scanned the film plane, right? And still gave us amazing files. I remember being amazed all the time.
They were how big?
Well, the power in the beginning of it. Wayne, what was the studio kit? You remember what it started out with?
Studio kit was 25 megapixels. That's a photo phase or a power phase you have there? I think it's a photo phase.
Photo phase.
That was 103 megapixel, and then the power phase was 144.
Power phase was 144, and then how much was the power phase effects?
356 or so. Yeah,
In 19, what, 90?
Well, they started
Something.
in 96, so they evolved.
93.
So if you had enough light and
93.
time and nothing was moving, you could get pretty amazing files back then.
They were files.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that separation of color, the color was tremendous, right? Nothing could touch the color because of that separation of red, green, and blue from the beginning. And so it did well, but this was color reproduction, right? This was, nothing could be moving, right? We had a long scan. The hot lights at the time would heat up your studio, right? It was difficult. I know my photographers that had studios near the train tracks would have to restart their exposures, right? In the middle of a 10-minute exposure, the train would go by, oh, gotta do it again. And so that was the beginning of phase one, the scan backs. Scuzzy. Here you go. Back to you, getting rid of them. All right. Then we have to go back to DCB because Leaf is still leading in sensors. The DCB2 was a little bit smaller than the DCB1, wasn't 8 pounds. They still had cooling systems, but there are fans on either side that pulled the air through to cool the sensor down. Same 2K by 2K sensor, but lighter. Didn't need the big CNR P2 at the time. You could put it on smaller things. This has a Hasselblad V. So this was designed for the Hasselblad V back, right on the back.
There's no viewfinder.
There's no viewfinder. There's a lot of things. It's still SCSI, right? It's still into the filter wheel. It was DCB2, but it's still into the filter wheel. But it was getting smaller and progressing. Yours. Phase. All right, since we're going to test Wayne, he's doing so well with it. Light phase came out when, Wayne?
Fall of 98 at Photokina.
Yeah, I don't even have, I'm not even going to know my numbers or notes, right? Because I'm just like, Wayne, when does this come out? Thank you for making this easy. I'm so glad you're here, Wayne. Why was this significant? Well, first we went from 2K, right, to a 2x3 sensor. So we went from 4 megapixel to 6 megapixel. So this is a 24 by 36 sensor. It was 35, essentially, 35 millimeter format.
No filter wheel.
And it was full color. Thank you, right? It was interpolated color. It was the Bayer pattern on the sensor, but it's firewire. So we went from SCSI to one of the first devices I ever remember using. That was firewire. I learned about firewire with this. It was way ahead of its time. And this one really put phase one on the roadmap.
It jettisoned us.
Yeah, it did. I was not working for phase one. This was my competition at the time. And I remember it was my biggest competition. It was frustrating how well this was doing when it came out. And it really took off. And so I realized I needed to change jobs because of this system. So that was the P series. The light series. That was the light phase. And so everything changed. It was the light phase. We had the photo phase, light phase, power phase, right? And then we get rid of that, and we then changed to the H series. So I'm going to put 2 H series out here. Wayne, give me some dates on H series.
Well, actually, the H20 was what came out next, and it was actually beginning of 2001 when that one came out.
So what I remember is H at the time, to me, stood for Hasselblad. The integration with Hasselblad, the partnership with Hasselblad was tremendous. So much so that the phase one H10, called the H101, was designed on a Hasselblad body and looked like it belonged. The styling, the design, everything fit perfectly, but this is a phase one. They worked incredibly well together at that point. And I think what happened was Hasselblad said, well, wow, this is amazing. This works really well with our product. This is making our product take off. Maybe we should have our own digital back. And so this integration, I don't think it went past the H101 looking like this, Wayne, did it?
No, it didn't. That was, the last one that had the matching look.
Did. So we got rid of the light phase. We went to H. We went
H20 was the first one.
H20. We had H10, H20, H25, and I think we have an H25 here. So when did the H25 come out? I'm going to test you. I've got 2003 for H25. What
About
year?
2003, yeah, it came out, yeah.
Okay. So significantly, H25 changed my marketplace. This product really changed how I was doing business and said, this is so strong in the Southeast, I quit and started my own company. And so I started Capture Integration because of this product. All the products you saw before that were maybe a second exposure, maybe 2-second exposures, but honestly, even at 2 seconds, they weren't very good at 2 seconds. Just because they were rated that long doesn't mean they were good at that long. This one was rated for 60 seconds. And so 60-second exposure with a digital back, with any of the really camera systems, any of them at the time was unheard of. It changed my marketplace. For those people that needed a 4-second, 6-second, 10-second exposure, we had a bunch in the Southeast that were using large room sets for the furniture market. This is the product that changed it for them. And I think just in Greensboro, North Carolina, I think I sold 120 H25s just in Greensboro. Because that furniture market, this was the product that finally opened the door digitally for them compared to shooting film. And nothing else could before that. Anything else you guys want to add about H25? This is 22 megapixel, right? And a larger frame.
Yeah, the other thing is that it was a jump in the sensor size too, because you were going from, really the sensors were 36 millimeter size. So it's not just that you had more pixels, but the sensor got bigger and not quite 645, but pretty close to it, 49 by 37. So
yeah, 30.
So 90%.
That gave you your wide angle back.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, angle of view. People don't realize how angle of view matters. Having the largest possible sensor on the back of your camera. Yes, while it maybe is only a few millimeters, that few millimeters, when you then extend it, that angle of view becomes significant. And you really don't know it until you shoot, and really how important that is. All right. So we can take these pieces back, right? H25. H25 did really well. All right. H25. Now we're into the P series. Wayne, P series on my notes, 2004.
The first one, yeah, but then actually it was like 2006 when a lot of them began the P30 and all that.
Yeah, the P30.
P45 was first.
Yep, came out second. So why did this matter? Well, before, in order for me to go untethered from my computer, I couldn't. I still had to have the computer, right? So I had to make sure I had my phase one.
P20 was first, yeah.
There's my phase one fanny pack. Right. So in order to shoot this on location, I had to tether into my Sony Vaio right here, and I looked cool doing it. I want you to know.
It was cool.
Right? I kept it for a reason. My wife really likes this. So this is what was our tethering system. This was our untethered from the computer. It wasn't. It still was a computer. I had a Sony Vaio. I had a large battery in there. I still had a FireWire to it with a FireWire connection. That changed everything. Going to the P series, right? We had an LCD.
An amazing LCD.
I'll let you borrow it if you like. So we have
2 inches.
Well, it was an amazing LCD. This was a low voltage LCD. So low voltage means the batteries lasted for like 4 hours. And so, yes, while it wasn't big and beautiful, it lasted for a long time. So 4 hours of shooting with a battery and the LCD.
Which one is that, Dave?
This one, well, this is a P65.
Okay, because I said before P4, I meant to say P20 and P25 were the first ones. Yeah, 2004. So
Right. And then we went all the way to 16 megapixel, right? So that we kind of stopped at the full frame 16 megapixel in the P series. But this was full frame 645, right? Same physical size that we have the sensors today with the P series. Anything else you want to add about P series?
Well, that's still a gorgeous capture.
Well, so many clients are still using it.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
still sell a bunch of P series.
Yeah.
Yep. In between, there was P series to P plus series. And so there were some feature sets. There was live view on the P45. There was better IR filter. You remember all the P plus advantages, Steve? Come on, test you.
Well, the big thing that it was, you just didn't have it before. And no one had a compact flash card slot. No one had an LCD. It's interesting on the P series because when Phase went to P, that's when they'd always been Philips and DALSA on the sensors, and they went to Kodak for the P series. Then they went back to Philips DALSA eventually.
That's a good point. We didn't really talk about who made the sensors as we went on. But yeah, they were different sensors with different color responses.
Different long exposure capabilities. Because that went away, you went to the pluses, you had that long exposure, you could do 40 minutes, an hour even, and then you went back to Philips DALSA and you were back to a minute or so for a few years there before they could do something about it.
Yeah, so it says how far ahead of time they were and
Yeah.
how well we did with
Yeah.
having
Now,
that
even
hour-long
today,
exposure.
You do a P45 plus long exposure for an hour. I don't know of anything today that even is capturing that clean. It's amazing.
I will tell you, I did a test just 2 years ago with a P45 Plus and a manufacturer who just had a big release today. I won't name them, right? And that 15-year-old P45 Plus, right, beat in dynamic range, in highlight rendition, in shadow noise. It beat it incredibly. All sorts of different features, a 15-year-old digital back versus the latest from that manufacturer that had a release. Okay. But all right. So P45 from the P series, because of Hasselblad saying we wanted to then make our own, they did start making their own digital backs, and there was a worry from Phase. Well, they might lock us out completely, and so Phase One in 2009, I believe. Right, 2009 purchased a controlling share of Mamiya. And so you'll see that essentially the same camera system, one with a Mamiya logo, one with a Phase One logo, purchased a controlling share so that they weren't locked out of the platform. They will still have their own lenses, their own bodies, and still can sell systems. Anything you want to add to that, John or Wayne?
the camera actually came out in 2008. We started to, we introduced that 645 format. Yeah, the year before.
Yeah, I would just say that it's been an interesting journey on that side, going from a sort of a partnering with Mamiya to a controlling interest to a full ownership, and just to see how they've sort of developed over the years as a company as well.
Oh, I haven't got to the full ownership yet, but we'll get to
But I don't want to get ahead of you.
let the cat out of the bag, John. Darn it. And so, yeah, significant because what happened with this model was huge jumps in what we'll get into in a second. And so then significantly in 2009, in 2009, Phase One then purchased Leaf. And so where Leaf was ahead in the beginning, Phase One took over. They took over early, before these models that I've discussed here. But the Leaf back and a Phase back, you'll see are very similar, right, at that moment, because essentially almost everything internally is the same in these two. But to keep the Leaf color range and those customers going, it made sense to put the Leaf to be a little bit different, a little bit of the different ICC profiles, but essentially they're the same. So that was 2009 when they purchased that. Wayne, anything? Good.
And that's the Credo line, which came out a little bit, but at that time in 2009, it was the Aptus.
It was the Aptus, yeah, 10 and 12. I don't
Yeah, it
have,
was, yeah, the 5, 6, 7,
Yeah.
8, and 10. Yeah, and then the 12. Yeah.
right. All right. And then significant jump, right? Significant jump from there, from P series to IQ series, from that small LCD to a huge touchscreen. The IQ series came out in 2011, right? And so there is the IQ series there. It was a big jump in a 3-inch touchscreen, the same 4-button design. So if you'd like to use the buttons manually, you still can use the same 4-button design. But if you wanted to use the touchscreen, you could use the touchscreen as well. We went away from some of the things that were difficult, right? The FireWire went away, and we went to USB and FireWire. So USB on the side, FireWire here. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I thought that they didn't get enough credit for, I don't know if back then there was any camera manufacturer that was even making a touch screen. And they had a touch screen, and it was really intuitive. And back then, and even today, we're used to menu systems that are so traditional. And this is 10 years ago. They're out with that. So I was
It's 10 years since the IQ was
Yes, it
introduced.
was.
Yeah, it's significant, 10 years. So we had that touchscreen on the Aptus, but we had the stylus.
The stylus, because it was like
Stylus.
a Palm Pilot kind of a
Yeah.
OS on it.
Yeah, little click. All right,
Spinning wheel.
XF comes out 2015. Here's the XF. And so if you ask me, the Mamiya version, the DF Plus, while they were very good and had some significant increases in technology, being able to put leaf shutter lenses on a focal plane camera system, be able to do focal plane or leaf shutter was a great advantage of the DF. But the DF lacked a lot of things. To me, it was a prosumer camera almost. The lag in the shutter, right, was a problem. There were all sorts of difficulties to me in the DF. This changed everything. The XF made it just a professional camera system. We couldn't take the viewfinder off on the DF. And now we have waist level viewfinder capabilities. You want to go into see what your favorite parts of XF are?
Well, for me, the programmability of this body, the fact that because photographers have distinctly different needs, even within their own genres of shooting, the ability to have 3 saved, completely different programming in the camera body, so that my wheels are programmed differently, my buttons are programmed differently, the swipe screens on the top present differently, the icons on the bottom present differently. Make it that I can very easily be in a studio shoot on sticks, and the client goes, "Oh, there's this thing over here. Can we do that?" And I can grab this camera and with a button press switch over to a mode that favors it being in my hand.
I think
and
you
can
like
shoot.
the XF.
I love the XF. This is my favorite camera.
Mhm.
Well, you've got menu systems that are actually with words instead of cryptic symbols, and anyone changing something on a DF or any previous Mamiya body was, if you didn't have all those memorized, which no one does.
Oh my gosh, the 99 functions. Let me get out that manual to see what the 99 functions are.
What's
Oh, yeah.
CRT,
Yeah.
1 or 2,
Yeah.
what does 1 do? if
We'll
I said
get
that?
into some more of this in a second, because I know it's going to be some of the features we talk about, because there's a lot more to talk about. But that was a big deal in 2015. And then from 2015,
Well, and it didn't
Mhm.
stop, because it was a new platform.
then it continued with that way. What it did in a second, yeah. 2016 being Phase's best year, the IQ3-100. IQ3-100 came out. We're talking full frame, 100 megapixel, high ISO, lots of advantages of the IQ300. How it integrated into the XF, significant increase in technology when that camera system came out. IQ300. So IQ300 was 2016, talking 5 years ago. All right. The IQ4. Where's the IQ4? IQ4. And so similarly, but a brand new operating system. So completely new operating system in the IQ4. 150 megapixels, from 100 to 150, so a 50% jump in resolution. It's now been out for 3 years, the IQ4. All right, and then finally the XT. So XT is this guy in the middle over here. The XT has came out in 2019, 2 years ago. And we'll get into technical cameras and we'll get into differences between the cameras and such in a little bit. But there's the history, there's the roadmap. Now, there's one thing that we haven't talked about, and we haven't talked about it because we have the bespoke guys here, but we need to address it. Let's talk about the IXU and the IXM series. Let's talk about aerial systems, and we have a system here. Let's bring it out. So we have other divisions of phase one that are doing really well, and they don't get talked about that much. There is a art reproduction side, there's an aerial side, there's an industrial side, and you can see that it looks completely different. And so, John, would you want to talk a little bit about the industrial and the aerial side?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So one of the things that you'll see with that camera, the IXM, is that the guts of that and the guts of the IQ4 were developed together. They're designed to be a single sort of platform that we can co-develop and then spit out different features and different capabilities in different areas. So, you know, those are much more similar under the hood than sort of any other cameras that we make. But that said, yeah, the aerial market is something that's been just growing incredibly for us over the past few years. And if you look at, we kind of started developing the aerial cameras as sort of a kind of like a skunkworks project. We had a small team working on it, a small sales team working on it. And as they've grown, it's become a huge part of our business. So that's why, you know, I now live in Colorado instead of Long Island, because we've combined our operations together. We've combined our support teams together. We're operating instead of sort of this other little division doing aerial and this division doing bespoke photography, we're now one phase one company doing both and doing together and working together. And so we have our eyes in a lot of different areas, but because of the way we design the IXM and the IQ4 to be the same platform, they feed off each other. So we develop features for the aerial systems that go into the traditional systems. We develop features for the traditional systems that find their way into aerial usages. So, you know, today I'm really splitting my time between working with both sets of clients, and it's been really fun and really interesting.
I think John's got a pipe and a thing of whiskey right behind it here, because that setting is just perfect for it.
I might.
We're conversational here, John. If you want us to whip them out, we'll be a little jealous, but be my guest too. So, all right, that is the history, and I think we've had a really good response all the way around from phase. I don't think we need to go anymore because we've talked about the history. Now let's start getting into features. Let's talk about our good feature, and then we'll go further than that. And so, starting out with good feature, we're gonna go Steve. What's the good feature for you?
This is the good feature, right? Not the favorite feature.
This is the
not
good
the
feature.
Greatest
Yeah,
feature.
that's correct. It's
So
the good
this
feature.
this is a good feature. I don't think a lot of what I would say tonight are things that I don't feel that phase one gets enough credit for. And one of them is that today it's not that unusual for cameras to have feature firmware updates, where in the past firmware was kind of something that would fix, you know, a problem. And today it's more about, okay, here's an enhancement of some sort. But phase one, more than any other camera maker I can think of, has had so many more enhancements via free firmware feature updates to their system than any other camera that I know. And I mean, I started to compile them, and I stopped after about 25 or 30, and I was about halfway there since 2015 when they came out with the XF. And we'll talk about some of them. I mean, I know some of them are your favorites, Brad, but some of them are just, you know, people aren't even aware of them, and they're unique, like flash analysis. You know, like where does your flash cut off in your exposure?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not a common feature that many photographers would use, but some of them, yes, would benefit from knowing that. And there's a graph that shows up right on the camera.
I think it's a significant statement. What you're saying is that some of my favorite features are a free feature that was given to me a couple of years after buying the camera system.
Yes.
That it was a download, I upgraded, all of a sudden I had these features.
Right.
That's a significant statement. I didn't have it in the beginning.
Right.
They came out with it, upgraded it, and we'll go over them in a little bit, but I can't think of many others. I've seen one feature here, one feature there for other manufacturers, but not, like you said, 25, 30
Yeah,
different
new,
features.
new
that
suites of
come out.
features that come out as feature updates.
Yep, I'm with you. Brad?
Well, I've already touched on my, what do we call
Good
this one? The good feature is the programmability of the camera. I can switch gears very quickly. And, you know, the thing about having such a magnificently programmable camera is that you can sometimes, you know, accidentally do something erroneous. You can do a long press when you don't mean to, and then something gets reprogrammed, and then you're looking at it like, why is that like that? Well, because I have these 3 presets to fall back on, I can be in the middle of a frenetic shoot, and I can just reset the camera back to not default, but back to my preference set. So I know where all my buttons are. You know, I don't have to redesign in the field, in the heat of the shoot. And for me, that fallback point is a fantastic safety mechanism that my shoot can move forward smoothly.
Well, that flows right into mine. So my good feature is the simplicity of the design, right? I've got 4 buttons on the back. I don't have 28 million gazillion buttons that my face is going to touch, my nose is going to change, my thumb is going to hit a dial and change it on set, right? I've got 4 buttons on the back. The ease of use, the ability to teach it, the ability to sit down for an hour with this camera system, go through the menus, scroll through the menus, and go, yeah, I got it. This is designed by a photographer. It looks daunting. It's not the jack of all trades. This does one thing better than anybody else. And that's what I want. I don't, to me, my personality, I don't want a phone that does 100 different things. I want to make a really good phone call, right? And maybe 2 other things. I love the simplicity and the ease of use of a camera system. And that's why this draws into this system. The manual shooting personality that I love. I love putting this on my Hasselblad V500 series and shoot my Hasselblad 500 series, right? Just a manual. I'm an old school photographer, so this one speaks to me. I have 2 cameras that I grab off the shelf. This is one of them, period. All right, great feature. I'm gonna go to Steve. What's a great feature?
A great feature would be the ability, the fact that these are still modular systems. From the beginning, it was a digital back like we were used to with film backs that would go on the back of a camera, and that hasn't changed. So that introduces some limitations. For example, weather sealing might be more of a challenge there, but there's so many benefits. And the biggest one for me has always been that you could take this and put on other cameras, and especially cameras like these that you see here, technical shifting cameras or view cameras. And that's a really important part of Phase 1's marketplace, and it's important to me because I remember the first time I was ever shown what a view camera does, and shown how you can tilt it and expand the depth of field, and how you can shift it and have complete control over the composition of your image and the framing. And do you want an element on the side while you're correcting for the vertical, the foreground of the sky? And you can control all of that with these cameras. And the optics for them are elite. I mean, there's really nothing better than these optics for these cameras. So you combine that with the ability to do that. And today now you have, because we sell all of these technical shift cameras from Cambo, Phase 1 from Alpha. We sell Cambo and Arca Swiss, little small, amazing little view cameras. And you can put other camera bodies on these view cameras, but they're limited for using these view camera lenses, which are so amazing because you've got the thickness of the body. You don't have thickness of the body here. You've got the sensors right there. There's no thickness where, okay, I can't get, with a short lens like you can with these other bodies. So it's the perfect capture device.
There is no flange distance.
Right, there's no flange.
There's no flange distance.
Yeah.
There's no mirror box. There's just this mounts to this,
There's
and
the
does
sensor.
this
Even
task.
without a mirror box, like you still have that sensor's got to be recessed inside that camera, and you don't have it.
I see you knocked it out of the park. Completely agree. We're marrying the highest quality optics with the highest quality sensor to get the best system possible. Yeah. I'm with you. Brad.
The automated focus stacking available in this camera transformed my product photography. For a long time, I was always fighting using a technical, I was using a beautiful Arca Swiss monolith 6x9 in the studio. But when you're shooting for a client that you see once a year and you need to duplicate the shot you did last year, and you got to wrangle that camera back into shape, if I'm having a Zen morning, that's still going to take me an hour to get that camera lined up in the way that I was. Zen morning.
Aren't all your mornings Zen morning?
Not always, because if that situation was fighting me, you're approaching noon and you haven't gotten a hero shot off yet. That's a kind of a tension that I don't want in my life. And when I started working with the XF in the studio, and I no longer had to acquiesce to depth of field falling off faster than I wanted it to, that I could choose optics for the way that optic rendered that item. I love shooting the 55mm lens on product because it's like you're holding it in your hand. You're getting that perspective on it. So I can get that camera into shape really fast. I can match all the things I had set up the last time. And then the focus stacking, I tell it the front point, I tell it the rear point, based on the digital back that's attached and the f-stop I'm shooting at. It delivers me the amount of frames I need to fire, and it does it. And it does it repeatedly and perfectly every time. I have never failed a focus stack on this camera. And I've shot thousands of them at this point.
No, not thousands of images.
Thousands of
Of
stacks.
focus stacks with 60 images, 100 images?
Yeah. My regular focus stack on, say, a golf ball is 60 images. But before, when I used to, it would be like taking a picture of the moon in a sky, and that's how big I could have that ball registered in the shot, because in order to get the front face and that back trailing edge in focus, it had to be that loose in the frame. And now I'm delivering 9,000 pixel images, and they're gorgeous. It obviously puts some retouching time in there.
I'm looking at our time, and we're way over our time, but it's because we love the product range. So please excuse us, guys, for that. What was going to take a little bit long. We're going to be a little bit longer than we've taken in the past. But I think what you said, I can get the perspective I want by choosing that lens properly, and then because of I can keep that perspective, I can then stack, and it gives you both qualities you need, both depth and perspective, and automated. Okay, I'm gonna go a little faster, but mine's really simple. My great feature is dynamic range. I told you already, I shoot two products. I shoot two products because I'm a manual guy. I'm an old school guy. They speak to me and who my personality is. And when I go to that other product, I look at the dynamic range, right? It's nowhere close. I go back, put in Capture One, and I try to pull my highlights back. I can pull my highlights back on a IQ 3100, an IQ 4 150, and they're just not there. And so you've got to do this to understand it. You've got to shoot one of these systems. You've got to give me my normal exposure or blow it out by mistake and go, oh, look at my image is blown out. Pull it back, and I've got 3 stops in my highlight, and it comes right back. You've got to do that to know it. But once you do it, you're like, oh, okay, I'm sold. And so dynamic range to me is my great feature compared to what else I shoot and a lot of other products in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. All right, so now we're gonna get a little bit, not negative, but we're gonna talk about needs improvement. So Steve, what needs improvement?
Well, let's see, where shall I start? Well, there are some things. I felt like the IQ4 was such a groundbreaking product when it came out. It did have some speed bumps, and in particular, one of those was some of that was really where a lot of people that went to IQ4 came from IQ 3100, and there were certain things and certain workflows that they had adopted that they were using with the IQ 3100 that when they jumped to IQ4 were not there.
Yeah, we talked about a complete redesign of the operating system, and some of the features of it were not present in the new cameras.
Right.
Yeah.
And so some of those have been resolved since then, but it's mostly about it's mostly about communication, and it took a long time to get, say, ad hoc Wi-Fi implemented into IQ4. And that was a workflow that really people were used to with the IQ3, and they depended on it. And so it wasn't just something, because another thing was focus mask. After you capture, it wasn't like focus peaking, but you could capture and then see a focus mask and kind of, you know, visually see where's the depth of field falling off. And people miss that, but that, you know, that's the Wi-Fi was like a big deal. And it was a long time before they got the Wi-Fi going, but there wasn't any communication coming from phase one at all about it. And I think that was something where I felt, you know, there's companies that are really great companies that have communicated. It's tricky, but when you're struggling as a company with something, you know, it means a lot to go out to the end users and say, hey, we know this is going on. We hear you, we feel you, we're working on it.
We talk about it here all the time. Feed the chickens, right? We're gonna make sure that the information trail is still out there. Throw it out there so that people know that we are still aware that we're not to it, know that we're working on it.
Right, because otherwise they'll assume that, okay, they don't care, they're not listening, and at least show that they care.
Sure, right?
Well, to that point, I mean, the IQ 3100 was like the culmination of everything from P series all the way up. They're using the same internal design. And so it was that last refinement. Everything would just work so perfectly well. And then we jumped into this brand new platform in IQ4, and it was a little dicey to start with. It was, you know, it was a little, you know, slightly premature in its readiness to jump into the shoes that IQ 3100 had created. Well, what all of P series and all of IQ series to that point had created. But just like Phase does, they started releasing the feature sets, and now this thing started doing things that, wow, no camera did before. And so on top of 150 megapixels with a backside illuminated sensor, now you've got these new features, and that's amazing. Well, when you engineer a bunch more horsepower into this thing, so it is future-proof again, you know, the stumbling blocks have been power. Like, you're gonna cook through batteries at a rate that you weren't doing in your previous backs. And with an IQ3 attached to an XF body, the power delivery was pretty gracious. The digital back would drain its power, using its power to do what it needed to do. And then as you got down to only about 40% left in that battery, the XF would start giving over its power to keep the whole system running well, to the point where when you got down to that critical 5% left in the digital back, it's because the XF had given 85% of its power over to the IQ3 in order to keep the whole system up as long as it could. So my pet peeve right now is that the IQ4 still doesn't have that. The XF is going to have 80% of its battery left, and the IQ4 is going to drop dead. Or it's going to be flashing, and the XF will keep it up in order that you can do a hot swap on batteries. But there isn't that combined power of the two, you know, leading to that cohesive, just, you know, an amazing amount of shoot time out of the whole thing.
I feel we're a little spoiled. I honestly, we feel we were a little spoiled. The P's and then the IQs were so rock solid, right? They were so rock solid, and they just, nothing went wrong with them. That when the IQ4 came out, it wasn't as rock solid. It still was far in advance over everything else, but it wasn't as rock solid. So I feel like everything you guys are saying, you're right. But man, I just don't think people realize how great the other camera systems were, the P's and the IQ3s, and that's why they still sell.
You take them for granted.
Yeah, you take them for granted. It just works,
And you just,
right? Yeah, you get out the car, you start in the morning, it works. You don't take it for granted when it doesn't work. So absolutely. So my needs improvement and a pet peeve, marketing. I have the world's greatest camera system and a company that doesn't understand how to market it. I have, even tonight on our panelists, our clients are the world's best photographers, period. And they're not being used in marketing to show how great these camera systems are. And so there are companies that don't have good marketing, but when you've got such an amazing product, your marketing should show what an amazing product is. You should be showing the world's greatest photographers working it. And I'm not saying anything negative about the dark they're using, but we have the world's best photographers using the world's best product. and that marketing could be better, could be a lot better. And then to go along with that little pet peeve, the website. I have to tell you, I know Phase One's website, and it's difficult to find something on it, right? If you want to find, give me that specifications of the 35 LS lens. If you want to know, sensors, what cameras or can I sell? You go to bespoke photography, and then you try to find IQ3100, you can't find it. I mean, it's just, it needs help. And so that's my pet peeve. So I did that. I just slammed the table. I pulled the seat. All right. So there's my needs improvement. So let's go past that. Let's talk about your absolute favorite feature of Phase One.
Well, my absolute favorite feature would have to be, pun intended, the elephant in the room, which is that, you go back years, and every time a new camera would come out that had more pixels, you would almost have photographers complaining about, oh gosh, not more pixels, not more. And this goes back to 22 megapixels. We've heard this for years.
I'm never going to need more than a
Right.
22 megapixel.
Who needs
it? Yeah.
And so here we are some years later, and do they even sell cameras with 22 megapixel? I think there's a few, but someone's got to have the most. And yes, photographers as a group don't all need 100 or 150 megapixels, but someone's, you don't want someone to like be taken off the table and restrict photographic capabilities. And so Phase One, again, to their credit, that they've always said, all right, we'll be the ones with the biggest sensor physically, and we'll have the most pixels on that sensor with high quality pixels where you can capture detail and resolution that is just you can't get from another camera system. And that all kind of goes into the ecosystem of their camera with their optics, with the XF, with the XT, with tech cameras and these Rodenstock lenses, and you combine that with 150 megapixels. And it's tempting to think, well, who shoots with 150 megapixels? More photographers than you would think. The photographers that we have on this evening do. Some of, there's iconic photographers that are using these systems, and they want the most that they can get. So I am appreciative that Phase One says, hey, it's expensive, and people will think, well, who needs this? But we'll continue to make it.
Brad.
The automated, the frame averaging and the dual exposure plus that the IQ4 150 has is nothing short of fantastic. The frame averaging oversamples, and you tell it how many frames you want to oversample, or you think about it in time. How much more time do I want to oversample? And so as long as your subject isn't moving, or you're not moving, this frame averaging is going to oversample that scene. And in the first 8, 9, 10 frames, it's going to remove all of the noise that is just natural on any static frame that is shot. So if you've got the time and you've got the scene, this cleans up everything. So like if I'm shooting architecture, that's my base shot. Before I've lit anything with strobes, before I want this robust frame of noise-free, beautiful image. And what happens as a consequence of that, or as a benefit of that, is that your dynamic range is expanding. There isn't an actual number that we can really claim and say this is it. But when you start dragging stuff out of the shadows, and because you've oversampled that shadow detail, you have gained lots of information there. When you look at it without augmenting it, it looks like the same shot as the other one. But as soon as you start tweaking, as soon as you start bringing a highlight down, as soon as you start bringing a shadow up, all that robust information, then the other way to use that tool is you want to shoot a 30-minute exposure midday of surf, you can do that. No neutral density, just as long of an exposure as you want to run, sample, 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 and then you get this gorgeous frame. So again, in an architectural situation where you're in a busy environment and people are walking by, I was just out 2 nights ago shooting something along those lines. You got people just walking by, sometimes staring at the camera as they're walking by. but you just run a long enough exposure, they all disappear. And then that object that you're shooting is just perfect. And you've got, this beautiful drag of the clouds in the sky, and you didn't have to change your exposure time. The camera is doing that math for you. It's just oversampling. And dual exposure plus is an extension of that. It's a quicker way of just saying, I'm picking my primary exposure, and it's going to shoot one that's 3 stops over, and it's going to combine them, and it's going to be a double-sized file. But in a moment of time, you've got this beautifully robust file that just allows you in post side work the availability of creating an image that you might have been very much limited in creating otherwise.
And these were features that were given to you after the fact.
After,
Right?
Yeah.
These are features that were added later that made you even more fall in love with the cameras and give you better quality. It's significant. Mine is easy. There's never been a higher quality digital. It should stop. Pull digital aside. There's never been a higher photographic quality capture system, period, on the marketplace. Right? We are superior to 8x10 film now with an IQ 4150. I will tell you that I have lots of people that are personal clients that were shooting 8x10 film, right? That are no longer shooting 8x10 film. So that's a significant statement. We went from 8x10 to shooting this. There's never been a higher quality capture system ever in the photographic marketplace.
The 8x10 thing really resonates for me because photographers that shoot 8x10, they're on a view camera, right? Well, photographers shoot 4x5, they're on a view camera, so they have the benefit of the view camera. So why shoot 8x10? They want more, they need more. And those are photographers that have gone and moved to this system.
Absolutely. Benny. All right, guys, that is our deep dive. We went deep into fun, right? And I think that was deeper than many thought we would, but it shows our love of the product line. And I'm banging the table again. Jon and Wayne, there were some pet peeves and there were some things that we were discussing. Do you want to have kind of retort to some of the pet peeves and needs improvement?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I can kind of specifically speak to, especially the IQ4 and the development of the IQ4, particularly, like you said, the IQ3100 was such a polished product. I mean, I can tell you from a technical support standpoint, I've never seen a product that, hit the market that was just sort of so robust from the beginning. With the IQ4, I don't know if everybody really realized just how much we built that system from scratch. It was 20 times the processing power. It was a whole new processing architecture, a whole new software architecture, really just a phenomenal base to build a camera off of. But it also meant that we had to build everything new. We couldn't port everything over. So a lot of those sort of early growing pains were us trying to prioritize and decide what features go in now, what do we actually not bring back, and what really great new stuff can we bring in. And so, it did probably take a little bit longer than we expected, but I think the results have been phenomenal. One other thing that I'll add, and this is just my, me adding in an under the radar feature that I absolutely love. And that's that for the last 15 years, we've had the best raw file compression in the industry by far. And this is something that, we don't really market that much anymore. But think about it. The complaints that we often get is, oh, why do I need 150 megapixels? Or 150 megapixels is too much and it will ruin my workflow. To which I say, I shoot almost exclusively IQS on the IQ 4150. That's a 100 megabyte raw file that's 150 megapixels. If I were to switch to a competitor's 50 megapixel camera, I would be producing an 85 megabyte raw file. So for an extra 15 megs on my computer, I get 3 times the information, 3 times the details. And you know what? If I don't need 150 megapixels, then when I process the image out, I'll process it to a smaller size and it's still not taking up more space. But the data is there if I ever want it. I do a big project every year that results in a 3x4 inch card. How many megapixels do I need for that? 150. Why? Because when I'm stacking 4 different shots together and retouching them, you know how easy it is to mask in people when you've got 150 megapixels? You can do it roughly and it looks brilliant when it's this big in the end. And I'll stand by that.
Well, I think your people don't realize what the competitor's raw file size is in comparison. So that's a great point.
Yeah.
It's significant. So you're getting less, and you're eating up more gift card or your SD card or your computer space. So yeah.
We used to say that okay, so a back in the day we say, you know, a Canon camera can produce more frames per second than a phase 1 can by a long shot, but we could shoot more frames in a minute and transfer them to the computer than the Canon could, you know. And that was the thing, because of the compression. We weren't hitting the buffer. We could transfer really fast while tethering, and that was it made a big difference in workflows.
Awesome. Great. Then let's go ahead and introduce our clients. I'm excited that the people listening don't want to listen to us anymore. Right? Let's introduce people with talent, right? Rather than us. So, yeah, exactly. Let's get on once. So I think our first customer, Jason Dewey. Brad, you want to introduce Jason?
Sure. I became acquainted with Jason just about 6 years ago. He was one of the first clients I liaised with in my role here, and helped solve problems, helped solve whatever he was up against, because he pushes his cameras to the nth degree because of the situations he finds himself in when he's shooting. And his eagerness to adopt whatever the workflow is that benefits his end imagery has always been fantastic. So we can always problem solve and go, hey, what about this? And yeah, I'll try that the next time. And I love the way Jason speaks. He's always very quick to respond and work. And so we can have very succinct conversations, and he runs. And his images are glorious. I love looking at your images. So I'm happy to be the person introducing you. And
that's an introduction, right?
Wow.
We got to live up to that on introductions next, Steve. Hi, Jason.
Hey, hi. How's everybody doing? Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. So, want to talk to us about your journey to phase 1?
Yeah, sure. So I started out like a lot of commercial photographers, assisting for years. Became a commercial photographer in, I don't know, the late 90s, I think. At the time, I was shooting more lifestyle and editorial and action sports. I did a lot of stuff in the stock world, shooting for Getty. And then I kind of eventually migrated into shooting residential stuff and architecture. And then from there went into shooting more hotels and resorts. And that's what we do most of now, is shooting hospitality and destination travel for airlines and mostly hospitality. So I started out shooting film, shooting 4x5 and shooting with the RZ and with the 645. So I switched to phase around I think 2005 or 2006. I think Wayne might have helped me figure out when that was. When you were talking about P30s, that was my first back. And then I have been gradually upgrading along with the upgrade path ever since, from the P30 to the P30 Plus, which was a pretty significant improvement. And then a 45, and then I think I briefly had an 80, and then bought into the DF Plus system when I moved away from the Hasselblad bodies, from the H2s and the H3s and H4s. And then the DF Plus was quickly followed by the XF, so I jumped into that and the IQ series backs. And I also shoot with a Cambo tech camera because of the need for camera movement. So we use everything, I guess. So that's my background. Is that enough?
No, we need you to buy 3 more of each, please. Then that would be better for us.
3 more of each, yeah.
So you're shooting presently with a Cambo technical camera system. Correct?
I am. Yeah, and I would say I shoot with the XF about 3/4 of the time, or maybe more than that. I switch to the Cambo when I need to stitch, or when the focal length calls for it, when the 32 Rodenstock works better than the 35 on the XF, or I guess mostly when we need to stitch. We do a lot of stitching. So we definitely jump back and forth and do both. I've got both in the same camera bag on the cart with us. And there's a picture of mine. Should I talk a little bit about this one?
Yep. Is this a stitch?
Yeah, so this is actually, so this was a fine art series that I did for a client in Hawaii that wanted to have really, really large prints on display in their public spaces. So, and I wanted to try and do something different because there's millions of great shots of you know, of the Hawaiian Islands. So I did this whole series using pretty heavy ND to be able to make the water, you know, have this kind of real glowy, kind of ethereal look and feel. So this is actually a 5-image stitch, I think, with the 70 millimeter. So 5 images vertically. And I think because there's heavy ND on here and it was getting near dusk, each one of these was like in excess of 4 minutes or so, which is why the water has this very unusual look. It was actually really rough that day. So that was that was a series that we did, and this this image is actually, I think, the biggest one that they have. It's 9 feet long, hanging over a bar in this hotel in Maui, and every time I go back there, I'm still kind of blown away by it. I look at it and the detail that you can see in like every barnacle, and there's actually a bird in there that, believe it or not, wasn't really moving very much, and so you can actually see pretty good detail in the bird in his nest. No, it was actually sitting on a nest. You can and you can barely see it in the shadows in that arch, just to the left of that arch. If we had I wish we had a full frame, like a, you know, zoomed into 100% to show the detail in that image. But and then this is so this actually happens to be another Hawaii job. So we were we started flying the DF Plus on a drone before the XF came out, right when in the era of the DF Plus, whenever that was. And this is one of those shots with the IQ, with the 50 megapixel, I think. Got a little bit lucky with a rainbow in that shot. So we were actually we were shooting with this back and the DF Plus, and then we've also since I moved on to the XF, I have shot a fair amount with the XF on the Free Fly Alta crafts, which has been great for us because it allows us to be able to, if we're too far back on an image and we're over framed, I can actually push in and post and still have, you know, plenty of resolution to be able to get, you know, what the client needs in terms of file size. This one is also, this one's also another stitch. So this is fairly typical of the kind of stuff that we do in big public spaces, when this is just physically impossible to get this kind of shot with a single image capture, and to be able to get as much information in the frame on the far left and the far right, I would have to shoot with a wider lens than what exists in the lineup right now for a single capture with the XF. So I think this is a stitch with a 40 millimeter Rodenstock. So it's fairly typical of the kind of sort of big, grand scale lobbies and giant restaurants and stuff like that we shoot a lot of. So yeah, we do a lot of stitching.
Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Jason, is there a feature that has come out in the product that is something that's integral to your workflow?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Brad stole one of mine, and then Dave, you stole one of mine with dynamic range. So, because those are both really, really important features. The focus stacking, I don't use it that often, but when I do, there isn't any other way to, to do that. The dynamic range never ceases to amaze me. I guess what I would say is a couple things real quick. I can't say enough about how clean these files are at really, really long exposures. And there aren't other sensors out there in other cameras. I own other cameras and occasionally work with other cameras, but there isn't a time when I'm blown away by looking at how clean the sky is and I'm not talking like 30 to 60 second exposures, I'm talking like 2, 3, 4 minute exposures where there's just virtually no noise whatsoever in the lower ISOs, which is amazing. And that's something that's really valuable to me. So, and then the other thing that I had on my list is the Rodenstock 32 and the Rodenstock 40 paired with the IQ back they're just exceptional lenses. And the resolution that we get all the way into the corners is something that we rely on all the time, literally every day that we're shooting.
We're all here, yeah. We're speaking to the choir. Right?
Oh, hey, can I just add one more thing really quick? This is not a feature set necessarily, but in owning an XF system and a tech camera and lenses to go with that tech camera, both Rodenstock and Schneider, there's a feature that I get, and that is that I get a Brad and I get a Dave. and I'm not trying to like gratuitously plug you guys, but you guys have helped me so many times on set, on location, trying to figure stuff out. And that's really, really valuable for people like me who are, under pressure with clients behind us and talent in front of the camera, and we need to resolve issues quickly. And then the one other thing I would just add really quick is in talking about how great the IQ backs were. I recently, as you guys know, my XF hit the concrete at felt like 10 feet and it ejected into multiple pieces. The back was about 1.5 feet away from the body, and the prism was completely destroyed. And it went through Jon Gilbert's hands on the way to being, evaluated in Japan. And it came back that the back was fine, which completely blew me away. I just assumed that the back taking that kind of impact couldn't handle it. And I even emailed Jon and I was like, are you guys sure that this thing is okay? And I'm still using it, and it's perfect, which I think is a real testament to the build quality of this system, which is important.
Jason. All the time. It's all the time. And we know it's going to come up and pick it up and put it back on, and we're fine.
Yeah, I think for people who don't own Phase, this thing is built like a tank. And I try not to drop it or have it knocked off the sticks, but stuff happens. And I, like I said, I just can't believe that back took that kind of impact and survived and was working the next day.
Well, we can't thank you enough for being our customer and trusting us with your business. We totally understand that there's other options out there, but we thank you for choosing us.
Absolutely.
CI. All right, so then we have our next panelist. Steve, do you want to introduce Weldon?
Sure. So Weldon Brewster is one of my favorite clients at Capture Integration. He's been with us for a long time, for 12, 13 years or something like that, Weldon, I'm guessing. So he's been through a lot, and I did a little research on you, Weldon, in a way that I hadn't before today, because I was like, okay, I've got to introduce Weldon. I know Weldon, but let me see what else I can dig up on him. And so, real obvious things like you've been in photography for 34 years. So you've had a nice, long, successful career. You degreed in photography and finance, which sounds like a killer combination for a photographer. And there were comments like I was going to LinkedIn pages and Owler pages and other just all kinds of sites. And there was numerous client comments about great images and so easy to work with. So easy to work with happened so many times on the comments. I was like, yep, that's Weldon. He's just one of the most affable people I've ever met. And, for a photographer, to me, that goes a long way. And it's a tribute to Weldon that he has that.
Have you met Weldon in person?
Oh, sure.
Okay, I've never met Weldon in person. That's the first time I'm seeing Weldon here tonight. It's like,
Yeah.
it's funny because we have customers around the world, and there's so many that we don't ever get to meet. And so my image of Weldon was completely different. It's like, oh, that's Weldon Brewster. That's awesome. Hi, Weldon.
Hi guys, how's it going?
We're doing well. We're doing the best we can. Thank you for joining
Thanks
us.
for having me.
Oh, awesome. You want to talk about your journey into phase one?
So I've actually got the dogs here, and it's a dinner time, so I'm hoping they're going to go back to sleep here. So my journey to phase one, I've shot film for the first 15 years or something like that. And in 2006, I started shooting with a competitor's product. And then in 2010, I bought my first digital back from Steve. And I think I bought at least 6 backs from Steve. Everything from the P25 Plus and IQ, I had a list here somewhere. IQ 180, fantastic trichromatic, and the IQ4 150 and the IQ4 150 achromatic. So it's and then both the XF and the XT system. So and my jump was to go into medium format was from film, from 4x5 and 8x10 film. So trying to think if I have anything else to add. Steve was so gracious to give such a great introduction there and stuff. So yeah, I think that's all I have on the me there.
You're working on a couple interesting projects right now, Weldon.
Yeah, so this right here is, I was commissioned to document the new Frank Gehry building in downtown Los Angeles. It's right across the street from the Disney Concert Hall. And I'm down there once a week for 2.5 years. So I've seen it since it was a hole in the ground, and I'll be there until it's, completely finished and everything. So it's been a fantastic opportunity, and I've got free run of the place. I just send them a text and say, hey, I'm going to be on site on Tuesday. And they're like, hey, come on Wednesday, because we're pouring on Wednesday. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I can go down there with my assistant. We can set up lights, or I can just run around by myself and just, shoot pictures and stuff like that. So I actually got to meet Frank Gehry, which was kind of cool. So this is actually a concrete pour that we did when one of the first towers was topping out and stuff. And one of the things that I actually bought the XT system specifically for this job. And I needed something like a compact backpack that I could put a drone in, put an XT, a couple lenses, a small tripod, and be able to climb up ladders, ride up in these elevators and be in this really rough, dirty environment and stuff, and be able to shoot pictures like this. Now, what you can't see there, or maybe you can, is these guys are standing on 20 inches of rebar. So the ceiling or the roof of this is actually the floor of this deck is actually 20 inches thick. So we're going to actually play a little video, and you could see like a sort of behind the scenes of how I'm setting up the shots here. Hopefully it'll play here.
It's coming.
It's coming. All right. So on this particular day, I was down there with my assistant, and we got. Thank you. Well, here, I'll show you guys. So I've got to crawl around on this rebar while I've got the camera and stuff, and the images that I get out of this thing are absolutely amazing. And it's, pretty crazy that you can go up there, have this little camera, and have 151 megapixel images. Now, I do have some things when the concrete pump's going, because it's like there's only like a 10, 12-second lag between the air pushing the concrete up, because I think we're 30 floors off here. And so the vibration hits of the thing, and then I take a picture, and then the next little squirt of concrete comes out. You take a picture, next little thing comes out, stuff like that. So anyway, and then we also, when I bring my assistant down to the site, we can set up a little small studio and shoot. And, here we've shot one of the construction workers, and, we can just set up a light and shoot. And it's just like we're in the studio, but we're like, you guys saw the environment and stuff. So anyway, it's been a really fun project, and I'm not really sure how I'm going to top this in a 34-year career. So,
How much longer do you have to document it? Well,
so we've got until January, end of January of this next year that will be done, and then we've got 2 coffee table books that are coming out of the project. So there's going to be like a black and white and a color, sort of a more commercial one and a more fine art one on the project. So, but it's been a lot of fun.
That's the achromatic you're shooting that with?
You know what? I have taken the achromatic down there for that. I actually got that back for another project that I'm working on, like an abandoned power plant that I was given. One of my clients said, "You've got 4 months before we demolish it. You got a free run of the place." So
can we
basically just what's that?
Can we come out and shoot it with you?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, they're in the demolition phase now. So if you guys are ever out in LA, you come on out and we can shoot the achromatic, and they're demolishing stuff. It's actually pretty cool. They've got huge cranes, and they're cutting things apart with big torches and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Is there a feature that's important to your workflow?
I also do fine art too. And one of my favorite features right now is the frame averaging. I think that, and Brad hit on that. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic to not have to take ND filters or even down with the Grand when we're doing architecture shots, we can do frame average that, and you could just take all the construction workers out. So that's pretty fantastic. See, I had some notes here. Also on the features. So, I guess we're not supposed to mention the other manufacturers or whatever. But if you take the uncompressed raws and the compressed raws of the IQ 4150, the 4150s are the same size or smaller than the unnamed 61 megapixel camera. So it's that's a huge feature there. And then it's such a rock solid system to have the back, the XT, got one lens, and it works fantastic. Now I do tape mine up a little bit, and you guys may have seen those pictures of me wrapping paper tape, all of that, but that's just because there's concrete dust that gets in things and stuff like that. So hopefully that answered your question there. So, oh, and you know what? I want to second something that Jason said. To be able to pick up the phone or send you guys an email, and I've got Steve's cell phone number that I'm calling. Like if I have a problem, boom, you can talk to you guys and stuff. And I probably bug Brad a little bit because I'm always asking questions about this or asking questions about that and stuff like that. So, and Steve's emails are always like, I've got one more question. So, and I appreciate that, guys.
Thank you, Will.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming and showing us your project as well. I'm jealous. I want to go shoot.
Come on down.
Fly to LA, but they also want to shoot.
You can shoot with this camera you dropped.
It's still working. I told you. All right. And last but not least is one of my clients, Mr. Rodney Lough Jr. I will tell you that what's satisfying to me is when I have a customer that is exacting. Like this customer says, I need this quality, I need this level, I'm looking for this kind of output needs, and this customer came from 8x10. So Rodney, when we met, was shooting 8x10 film, and so those are big shoes to fill, right? When you then have to say, okay, we're going to come show a product that's going to replace the 8x10 film. When we can be pushed to technically exceed and technically satisfy those customers that want the ultimate quality, Rodney is one of those customers. And then he takes it to the next level, right? I will tell you that I've been on many workshops with Rodney, and we'll be setting our cameras in the same position, and I was like, oh, I'm trying to learn, and how he gets his great imagery, and he'll come up with this image at the end, and I look at mine, and it's like, wait a second, where the tripods on the same place? How is that possible? I just know I don't have the talent. Rodney's got the talent. So we've had a long-term relationship. Again, we've been through lots of different systems together. And I'm proud to introduce a very important client of mine, Rodney Lough Jr. Rodney, you there?
I am here. Thank you. That's really nice of you to say. I'm not sure about the picky comment. I think your talent is picky in a different way, you know, so I'm grateful for your pickiness about my pickiness, I guess.
Well, I know that we needed to excel on our end to make sure that we deliver the quality that you were always achieving on your end. And so I was very proud of our team that we were able to give you that quality. Do you want to talk about coming from 8x10 film and into digital and what that was like, Rodney?
Well, you know, I started the very first phase I used was on a Pentax at NASA. I had been invited to go out and shoot the last launch of Discovery. And so there I am in Florida, and I'm realizing that the 8x10 with reciprocity failure is not going to handle the night shots that I wanted to try and do. And so I gave you a call and said, help, what do I do? You're like, oh, they just came out with this P65 Plus. It's the coolest thing. I'm going to send it to you. And it was so easy to use. I mean, and I captured this one image that I don't think we have it to show, but it's really spectacular. When the xenon lights were coming on behind the space shuttle on the launch pad, and I'm inside the pad, and these blue lights came up, and it's spectacular. And, but
I wish we had that image to show as well, Rodney, because when I saw that image that you created after getting it after a day, right? And it was, again, one of the finest image I've ever seen of the launch. It was, how did you do it? I mean, it was stunning how good it was. I wish we could show that, because I was amazed. I was blown away right from the beginning as well.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I should have had that available. I'm sorry, it's totally my fault. But you know, I guess we might have to call law enforcement after I admit to this. But I am a bit of a pixel peeper. And so I had to wait a little bit for phase to sort of catch up with that 8x10. You know, I went from that P65, and then years and years went by, and I went to the IQ 180 on a technical field camera, little Arca RL 3D camera with some technical field camera lenses. And it was really remarkable. And the one thing I liked about that camera, and I mean, and everybody here who's talked about technical cameras have already mentioned pretty much all the cool stuff and the sharpness of the lenses and whatnot. But the one thing I really liked about it was the ease of use again, and to be able to take and put the digital back into a vertical format and then stitch pieces together yielded results that I did not expect. I mean, a single shot, and just being honest with your viewers and everybody, is that single shot still did not compare to an 8x10 sheet of film. It was close, especially if you could put multiple pieces together, then you could do it. What most people didn't realize, I guess, is that with film, because you had to scan it, right? Traditional dark rooms were kind of going away. Light jet was popping up, you know, all these things were available to us, that you could actually scan 3 or 4 or 5 pieces of 8x10 film, and guess what you could do? put them together too. And so, you're trying to compete with multiple stitched 8x10s to multiple stitched IQ 180s. And while it was really good, people could still see a difference in, one of my galleries.
I remember when you were doing IQ 180, you were stitching 8, 10, 12. Is that correct? Images together for one?
Yeah, typically about 9. 9 would get me the width I wanted. Yeah. And, those files are pretty big. You're at like what, 1.2 at 150% or something gig per piece. So, you definitely had a lot of data. That's why I said probably have to call law enforcement for the pixel peeping thing.
Are you still doing 9 with the IQ 4150?
No, surprisingly, I am still doing vertical, especially for panoramics and especially when things aren't moving. I mean, it's difficult to get stitch panoramics on a moving wave, right? Crashing into the shoreline, next to impossible. But I think I'm maybe at around 5, maybe 6 pieces to get to get the same, well, actually to get better quality than I was getting with the 180. And now a single IQ4 shot on Cambo WRS 1600, I believe it's the 75th anniversary edition. I'm the only person on the planet who apparently has it. I don't think that's true, but
in Idaho.
What's that?
Only one in Idaho.
Only in Idaho. Yeah, exactly. But the beauty of that camera system is one click, and I am equal to, and in some cases, I hope you're recording this because I'm thinking this is the first time I've said it.
Wait, we're recording this, right? I want to hear it.
Yeah, are you? Okay. Because it is as good as, if not better than, a single sheet of 8x10.
Oh, there it is. I didn't know we'd ever get it out of you. All right.
I can't tell you how long I've been say that. I am so grateful to FaZe for their continued, they just keep making things better. There's just no question. It is by far the best digital back available, and their camera systems, although I don't use any of them, I've read everything and watched everything. They are far better than anybody else. I just stay on top, FaZe. Stay there.
So talk to me about your workflow. I'm familiar with your workflow. Is there a feature set that is important to you in what you do?
I'm a bit of a neophyte. I got to admit that. So, I stick with the 8x10 film for so long. You worry about tilt, shift, swing, up, down, left, right, tilt, front, back, side, left. I mean, you worry about all that stuff to get everything perfect. But then, it's such a pain in the butt. Like this image we're looking at right now, that is a single piece of 8x10 film shot at sunset at Fly Geyser in Nevada. And it's in the Smithsonian, yay. And it's just a stunning moment, right? It's absolutely beautiful. But there are problems with it, right? When the film got processed, for example, you can actually see, I mean, you can't see it in this, but in the original scan, you can actually see where the agitation marks from the bubbles that are going up to process the film show up in the film. There are little algae bits in the film. When you scan it, you've got all kinds of problems with, micro scratches and little hairs and dust particles. You know what you don't have on any of those digital backs? I mean, if your sensor's clean, right? None of that. You have none of those issues. And I'm sure we're going to show another shot here in a moment. And the next two coming are the IQ4s. And they are immaculate. I mean, I don't remember who it was said, Weldon, I think maybe said it, or about processing, how you can go from the shot to a final output so fast because you're not spending your time messing around with the backside stuff. Because with that 8x10 scan, I got to go into Photoshop and I got to clone out all the little bits and hairs and all that junk, but here I don't have to. And I got to admit, if I had a peeve, I know you're going to ask me about a peeve. It would be that it weighs too much.
Wait, you shot 8x10 Arca Swiss. What are you talking about? I know how heavy your camera.
I'm getting older. All right. I want a credit card size, I4. I just slip it in my backpack and, I pull it out and just, click, and then stick it back in my back pocket. That's what I'm after. Yeah. It'll never happen. I know that it'll never happen. People have been talking about the things that they like the most. And I agree with virtually everything that's been said. In fact, I'd have to say I kind of agree with all of it because I can't think of one thing I didn't agree with. But, Copal, as you know, Copal Shutter Company, with these large cameras and the large lenses, they're not making them anymore. And trying to find them is like, trying to find hen's teeth. It's just impossible. And then when your Copal shutter breaks down, you're kind of SOL because you got to send it to someone and you hope they know what they're doing. And, they have all the equipment to time it and get it all back working the way it needs to be. But the one thing I like about the IQ4, it's probably my favorite feature other than the ones that have already been mentioned, is the electronic shutter. I love that thing because I don't have to worry about a shutter failing, and I can put a little delay on it. Say, I'll tap that screen and it'll wait just a teeny bit until all the vibrations are gone. And man, those things are just tack sharp. Love it.
We missed that. I feel like there's going to be so many things that we wanted to talk about, right? But we're already an hour and a half in. But yeah, there's going to be things like Rodney said
because that came with the IQ4. It was a free firmware upgrade on the IQ3.
Electronic shutter, it changes so much, being able to have that ability and then put a 2-second delay on it, boom, wait, doesn't shoot.
No vibration.
Vibration. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have to tell you guys, we are at 90 minutes because we could keep on talking and talking and talking. I think everyone could tell how much we love this product range. I'm going to reach out to Jon and Wayne. What you guys want to add? Anything else before we wrap up? I guess not. But then, Rodney, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for being our customer.
Oh, I was muted.
Me too. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, you want to add anything else before we wrap up?
I was going to say is that first I want to say I know I'm dating myself, but looking at the thing of John, there used to be this show called Wild Kingdom, and it just reminds me of that scene right there.
It's full of Omaha. It's wild.
So is he Marlon Perkins or is he Jim?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah. But anyway, I just found it's always really encouraging just to talk with our end users and appreciate the opportunity, Capture Integration, for just including us in this. And many of you, a couple of I do know I've met. And so just hearing about your experiences, and it's hard to echo. I mean, many of the features that you've spoken about too, I've used. And it's one thing too, I've seen a few things that come up here about, maybe size, or people talk about the speed and everything. And it just reminds me of a story with one of our users who was in Alaska and was on a boat with other photographers, and he was the only one with a phase 1, and he managed to get the shot of an eagle. Now everybody there on the tour had more images of an eagle they were trying to get, but his was undoubtedly the best. And being that so many had a lot of good ones, his having the best completely surpassed that. And even though he might have missed some, and it just had, and one of the things is that, you know, when you have that great image and you're showing it, or if it's on the wall of a gallery, the viewer never looks at it and says, I wonder how many images that the photographer missed to get that. You know, the main thing is having that. And it just puts it in, and it's about, we're always about, you know, slowing down and that's why I was so, you know, the 8x10 shooter there, you know, Rodney, is that just is a good lesson there, just to take your time and get the shot.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, every click is like $50, so you want to be pretty sure before you rip up $50. But the thing I love about that format is it teaches you to slow down, and then you get to go to, you know, this newer IQ4 system, and it's like dancing. You know, the first time you start to try to dance, you know, you look like what's her name, you know, on the jerky move dancer. What was that on Seinfeld, right?
Seinfeld.
Yeah. But eventually,
Arrow, I was thinking who?
eventually you get pretty good. And this camera system just helps you get there faster, I think.
Yeah, I think you know, the thing that I would add is there's a lot of us at Phase One who've been around a long time, and I like to think that I've been around a long time, but then Wayne puts me to shame. But I think part of the reason why there's so many people who've been around so long in the company is that, you know, we believe in what we're doing. We want to see what's next, and we want to be a part of it. You know, we're never going to be a camera company that sells, you know, 200,000 cameras a year. But we will be the camera company that you can always count on to be delivering the absolute best image quality. And that's been our focus, and that's going to continue to be our focus. And, you know, we may not be able to do every, you know, little thing that everybody else does, but we're going to do it our own way. And you can bet that the results from are going to be fantastic.
And also too, it's always about the, for me, it's, I guess, being sensitive to the craft of photography. You know, in my old life, I was a chemist manufacturing film, and I came from a film background. And what it was about with Phase One was you didn't have to change the way you did your photography. It was still all about photography, and we were just here to enhance it. And at that time, you know, it was film against digital in those days. And the whole premise was, now you've got the same emulsion number for life. But again, it was not about compromise. And you were still using your same conventional equipment that you had been using. And it was just, yeah, about taking it to the next level. That's always what we're about.
Yeah, we want to give you features that allow you to do things you couldn't do before, right? Accomplish things in your workflow you couldn't do before, to capture images you couldn't capture before.
Well, Wayne and Jon, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you for making us jealous of your environment and sitting there with your pipe and your whiskey. For Jason and look at there it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wait, put that back
Rodney,
up.
can you speak so we can see that?
Oh,
Yeah.
I want to say it again. Can we go back to that?
Rodney's got to talk.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking. What do you want?
You have to keep on talking so we can see it.
Okay. Oh, I got to talk. Blah, 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 blah. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit.
No, but look, not the most stunning shot you've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
Of a launch, right?
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the shot at about 2:30 in the morning with my PhD electrical engineer candidate working at NASA, who said that he could stay out all night if we wanted to. So we did. I asked him to stay, and then that's what we got.
Beautiful. Okay, right, Jon and Wayne, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
And
Thank
welcome.
you.
Right.
You know what, guys? I know that we're 2 hours in, or an hour and a half. Wait.
Uh-huh.
I know that we're really far in. We didn't even touch on the X shutter. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Right.
Yeah. The X shutter is badass. To be able to tether and you don't have to walk back to the camera to go cock the shutter or anything like that. That's totally cool. Set the shutter speed, the aperture. So anyway, I changed my answer on that one.
We didn't talk about focus trimming the lenses, right? Being able to do that, calibrating our lenses. We didn't talk about the built-in ProPhoto Air in the body. We didn't talk about all sorts of different features that we still have notes on.
It's easily resolvable, Dave. We do volume 2, book 2.
That will be volume 2, right? There's all sorts of things we didn't touch, but I think we have to be very careful of what not you're doing too much because there's so much. Guys, thank you for joining us, Weldon and Rodney and Jason. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your business. We appreciate you. But I think we're going to wrap it up now. And for all those customers that have stayed on for almost 2 hours with us, thank you for your patience. And hopefully this was something that you enjoyed. This is just the second medium format experience. We're going to do Hasselblad next. And so stay tuned for the Hasselblad medium format experience coming up. So everyone have a great evening. Stay safe, be well, and we'll see you soon. Good night.
Good job.